Response to Nirmala.
I was going to say, Nirmala, do you want to add to what he's telling us?
Just come and give us the response.
Outside and back.
Tell us the truth.
Thank you.
Morning. It was true that I wasn't looking at Bonnie, I was looking at Raj. But now I'm glad I didn't marry Raj. Well, it was an arranged marriage, and I think it was God's will, and it all worked out, and we're still together for 35 years. We just celebrated 35 years. And yeah, he is very good with tennis. He can beat all those white guys half his age. So I think he's good. And why I like it is because he brings back some gifts. like a cutlery set or a ice cooler box or whatever the gift is. So I like that for that. Of course he's away from home, so I shout at him as well. And he plays music for the church, which is good. And we run a Bible study for the non-Christians in Zimbabwe, and they're all Gujaratis. They are the only white rhinos, which is South Indians. And white rhinos are the extinct species. So it's been good. We never thought we could do it, and quite a few have come to know the Lord. And so I think we're quite grateful that we had the chance to do it. Yeah. I think that's it.
Thank you, Nirmala. Please.
Oh, wow. There comes the man.
More ready to share and some are not quite there. So if anybody is really particular that they need to wait for tomorrow, just let me know that. Otherwise, I'm just going to call on people in a random fashion. I'm not picking on anybody, but I will eventually. So just let me know your preferences.
Can I start?
Yes, please.
Good afternoon.
Are you photographing us?
Yeah. I have a little clues coming. These are my movie glasses.
I hold my glass.
Explain that.
Yeah, all I'm going to say is, okay, glass. Anyway, good afternoon.
We don't see you. Please get up and speak.
My little talk here will be more sobering and more reflective.
Can't hear.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Because when the mic gets too close to the mouth, then the voice gets distorted.
No, we don't have to.
Yeah, speaking so softly. Okay, let's start. I won't take too much time, but I'll be reflective and give you some of my thoughts, my deep thoughts.
Is it possible to stand
You
up?
want to project it?
Can try.
What have you got there?
No, these are just crib notes. So, would standing up help?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
It gives you more authority.
Maybe more authority.
He says you can look down on it.
People just want to be able to see.
The problem is, if I stand up, I'll be looking down, and my gaze blurs. I told videographer I can sit down.
But do what you want.
Do what
Do what you want to. People just wanted to see you, but
That's okay.
we can see you on the video.
You can always see me. Okay, let's start. I'm going to give you a little outline of myself, where I come from, what I have been doing, and where I'm going. Some of my thoughts, my reflections, and more seriously, my views on life, and other things that might be a little different from some of the things you might have expected. So, a little bit about myself, a couple of personal things. I was born in 1946 in Sri Lanka. At that time, the country was called Ceylon, and given the name of Faiz Ahmed Munas. My intimate acquaintances now call me Phil, and that is the name I use in my writings and my publications, Colors and Filmunas. And I like that name, so feel free to call me Phil. My family was in the shipping business, and when I was 10, the whole family moved to India. Besides my dad and mom, we were 8 of us, 4 boys and 4 girls. And I was the 4th, sort of in the middle of the section. We moved to India, to Kodampak in Madras, after my parents acquired a movie studio, which they renamed Broad Studios, and I grew up in the movie studio, large campus, and they built a house there. And that's where I grew up until I came to London. Very impressionable, very naive. I was lucky to be accepted to CMC Level. I was all 17. I think we joined in April, wasn't it? June. That August I turned 18, so I was 17 when I joined. And I spent the better part of 6 years, almost 7 years, with all you wonderful people. Got to know you, interacted with you, and became a doctor. One of the most vivid experiences for me when I was at Wello was to volunteer as a physician during the East Pakistan War of Independence, when Bangladesh was established. I just finished my internship then, and so I was a fully qualified doctor, licensed. And I set out to the border between then East Pakistan and India. There was this amazing place called Tentulia. It sprung up overnight. It was called Tentulia simply because it was a sea of tents. At that time, and these are astronomical numbers, 10 million people fled the war. It was a very brutal war. When it was right after the 1971 elections, and East Pakistan, which was more populous, had the majority in the National Assembly, and would have formed government, people who elected the MPs from East Pakistan, or the Awami League Party who had formed the government. Of course, the military dictatorship in West Pakistan annulled the elections and unleashed a brutal military attack on East Pakistan. 3 million people were massacred, killed. Now these are figures more than less and less than this that have been printed around. 3 million is a reasonable figure. That's the figure that's given out by the Bangladesh government today. And it was unbelievable. And the cruelty, the inhumanity, the depravity, the senseless violence is simply mind-boggling. And it is important to remember that that is all part of human nature, and it's also part of us. And when we are critical of these things, we have to look into our own selves and see where all this comes from. But I will leave that for another day. Some of that I have addressed in this book, in this novel of mine. Anyway, I was there not too long, 4 months, and at that young age, to be exposed to this type of brutality most of it went right over me. And I didn't quite absorb. I have over the years. I left there, came back, went back to Colombo. And right after that, I was offered a fellowship in pharmacology at Temple University in the United States. So I left in 1972 and came to the US and been there since. I did the fellowship in pharmacology, 2 years of fellowship in pharmacology. And following that, I did a year of internship and took my state licensing examinations and got licensed as a physician in the United States. And for a year, I just hung up my shingle and practiced medicine after a year of internship. Those days, you could do that. I did that for a year and then realized that I needed more postgraduate training, and I joined the psychiatric residency school. I did a year of that in Philadelphia at Temple University, the same place where I had done my pharmacology fellowship. And at the end of that period, I thought that I needed to reflect more and figure out, what direction to head in life. So I just took a year off. I had some money with me that I had earned during that year of private practice. So I just went up to New Orleans. New Orleans is a fascinating place. Got myself a flat right in the heart of the French Quarter on Bourbon Street. And I lived upstairs in the flat, and you can look down right into Bourbon Street and see all the tamasha going on all day. And I was getting high, writing poetry, reflecting on life, meeting a lot of interesting people, going out, 2 o'clock, buying food, coming back, eating, getting high again, sleeping. It was really reflective time. It made me think about many things, but I also became broke. I didn't work. I took the whole year off, had no income, used up all the money I had accumulated in my year of private practice. So I went back to residency training. I'd already done my PG 2 year. I'd done my 1 year of internship, which was PG 1, and then a year of psychiatry residency. So I did a PG 3 year in rural psychiatry, way out in the middle of nowhere. There was a pretty well-known institute in Iowa called the Mental Health Institute in Cherokee, Iowa, which was fairly famous for rural psychiatry. So I did my PG 3 year there, cold, particularly cold, near the Black Hills, where those huge statuettes of the American presidents are, not far from Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Sioux City, Iowa. Spent a year there. Then I figured I needed to get back to civilization. So I transferred from there for my final year to Chicago Medical School in Chicago, where I completed my final year of residence, my PG4 year. And then they sort of liked me there in Chicago Medical School and said, you stay on and do a year of clinical fellowship with us. So I did a clinical fellowship in psychiatry, a 5th year of postgraduate training, and completed that, and they recruited me onto the academic university staff. And I taught there. I was a full-time academic faculty as an assistant. I started off as an assistant professor. Initially, after I left that different place, I ended up as a clinical professor later on. And I did my and I worked there for approximately 3 years, and I got my dates here. That's why I was writing down here. I've done so many things that it's hard to remember. I left there in 1979. I finished my stint with the university, with Chicago Medical School, and then moved on to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I was offered a job there with the Milwaukee County Mental Health Institute. While in Chicago, the medical school itself is based on the PA campus, and I was also working at the VA. That was a private teaching hospital for the medical school. And my good friend Ragis came by and visited me briefly there. We said hello to each other, and that was the first time I had run into any of my classmates before. So I then went on to Milwaukee and finished, worked at the Milwaukee County Mental Health Complex, and then went into private practice. I had a very successful private practice. It just took off. Made a lot of money and invested in stock market. Became quite wealthy, and figured I needed to retire now. I had done enough, and in anticipation of retirement, I moved back. I was looking for a place to retire, and I selected a place in the middle of the United States, bought a farm there, and built a house there. And for a few years, I worked at the VA and was on the clinical faculty at Southern Illinois University, taught students, medical students, residents, and then retired altogether in 2004. After I retired, the stock market crashed in 2008, wiped out about 60% of my retirement earnings, and I went back to work for the prison system. Very, very nice job, and I'm glad I did that. Worked 3 years, almost 3 years, as a consultant in 3 different prisons. Saw a lot of things, eye-opening, mind-boggling stuff. And then in 2010, I retired completely after that stint of 3 years. Now, so that's sort of my background. Just a couple of things, and then I'll stop. Some of the reflections I have, and I'm going to read this out because I've written it, and it's better to just read it out rather than speak extemporaneously. Family and personal. I have remained comfortably single all my life, never been married, and opted out of having children. I have had many intimate and loving relationships and feel very fortunate that none of them have been and feel that none of them that have succeeded, those that have succeeded and flourished over the years, felt the need to corral me into an exclusive and exclusionary interpersonal relationship. For that supreme gift and consideration, I shall be forever thankful to them, these people. I have been and believed, I have seen and believed from a very young age that you enter the world alone and exit alone, single and unaccompanied by anyone. No one comes into this world with you, and none will offer to leave it with you. In this regard, I have faithfully followed the consistent doctrine recommended by all the great thinkers, philosophers, and cosmogonies that have ever informed humankind of life and living. I am therefore able to consider myself without conflict or favoritism, everyone equally as my personal family. Since this is an honest exercise in self-revelation, I must faithfully note to my esteemed audience that I do not believe in religion in any incarnation, shape, fashion, or form. I arrived at this conclusion after much thought and reflection and a serious study of the various original scriptures that are now considered an utter waste of time. Religion, of course, served an evolutionary purpose in the past 50,000 years or so, since behavioral modernity first appeared in Homo sapiens during their 200,000-year evolutionary history. In the modern era, religion has exhausted its purpose and is now a counterproductive, divisive, tribal, and destructive force responsible for elimination of billions of people. Some estimate as many as a third of humankind in the last 1,500 years. Religion will surely disappear over the next several generations, as statistical trends clearly indicate. I want to be among the first out. Anyway, I'll leave you with a couple of lines from the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam about life. And this is from the Edward Fitzgerald's translation. And if the wine you drink, the lip you press, ends in where all begins and ends in yes, think. You are today what yesterday you were. Tomorrow you shall not be less.
Thank you, Feliz. Obviously, you've done a lot of thinking. You're leaving us with a lot of things to think about. Thanks for taking the time to do that. Where's Michael? You're up.
Friends, first I would like to say a big thank you to Susie and Joyce and Vinod. But Susie was the person who finally found this a lost sheep. After I left Vellore in 1971, January, I had not been in contact with anyone except the secretary of our college, but for a short period only. Thanks. And then I lost contact with him too. But about a couple of months ago, while I was busy one morning in my practice, one of my receptionists disturbs me and tells me, "Hey, would you please take this call? You have got a